With the release of Matt Reeves The Batman last week, we have yet another fantastic entry added to the theatrical adaptations of the Caped Crusader. But where does the film rank in comparison to all of the other Batman films? Well, in this video, I'm going to be giving you my own ranking of all 13 theatrical Batman films, alongside sharing my brief thoughts on each one. Of course, this is just my opinion towards it, and it could very well change as I rewatch the new film even more into the future. But before I get into how I've ranked them, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content surrounding Matt Reeves' The Batman and upcoming films and HBO shows based on that world, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, here is my current ranking of all 13 Batman films from worst to best. Starting with last place, I'm putting Batman and Robin. It's probably the most commonly agreed on worst Batman film, and it was Joel Schumacher's follow-up to Batman Forever. The film was a critical and commercial failure that aims to appeal to the younger audience and goes well beyond its infusion of camp. Sure, George Clooney is a great actor, and there was loads of great performers with potential here, such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman, but while fun at times, it was also too silly, and in result, it took the character off the big screen for nearly a decade before Christopher Nolan came along and found a way to do it justice. To make such a colourful film so bad shows just how poorly done this film was, and I think it was a case of Schumacher aiming in on all the wrong things. I very much preferred his first Batman film a lot more, and while that had its obvious issues, Batman and Robin took that to the extreme. But hey, I'm sure some fans find a kick out of it, it just wasn't for me, and I think many others feel the same about it too. At the next spot, I'm putting Batman the movie from 1966. Now, while Adam West's Batman is typically laughed at by modern viewers, I think it's key to point out that this was a film that aimed in on the joke and knew what it was. While it doesn't hold up in certain regards, if you look at the film through a different lens, and it being a part of that time, it can be shamelessly campy, and a film that is really entertaining if you appreciate it for what it was. Adam West and Burt Ward are great in the roles of Batman and Robin for this particular approach, but its slew of villains steal the show, whether it be Cesar Romero's Joker, the Penguin, Riddler, or Catwoman. This is a film where Batman battles a shark, and if it's accepted within its own ways, you'll have a good time with it. While I prefer many other adaptations of the Caped Crusader more, Batman the movie is great for what it is, and I find myself having a good time whether it's played in random edgy bars or on some TV channel that still happens to show it. Coming in at number 11 is the first Schumacher film, and that is Batman Forever. This is probably the most divisive film in Batman's filmography, and while there are many things I don't like about it, there are also some great Batman moments on screen. Yes, the child-friendly target moved away from Burton's films and was quite the transition, but the stylized aesthetic and its approach to Bruce Wayne as a character, alongside Jim Carrey's fun performance as the Riddler, make it quite entertaining too. It's no piece of blockbuster art like we tapped into with Burton's work, but its neon Gotham and craziness make it kind of iconic for those particular choices. And it really is a masterpiece if we compare it to Batman and Robin. While it's not my favourite, I do find it quite entertaining, and it's been ingrained in my psyche since I was young. In 10th place is the Lego Batman movie. While I prefer the original Lego movie, the Batman spin-off in this franchise was able to become a kind of love letter to the world of Batman, yet it retained all the fun that was present in that original film. Will Arnett was great in his parody take on Batman, and Zack Galifianakis was also equally as good as the Joker, but what I personally love about this film is the celebration of Batman on the big screen throughout the years. There's references to almost all of it, yet it doesn't fully rely on getting the audience on board with that nostalgia. There's the theme of Bruce Wayne's loneliness all throughout that really taps into the character, and all the colourfulness and references only elevate the story that's there. There apparently won't be a sequel to this, but the film on its own still acts as a fun homage to everything about Batman and everything we've seen from him in the decades prior. At the number 9 spot comes Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. While Warner Brothers were late in releasing this film theatrically, the animated movie has since become a cult classic during its home video release, and to this day, it's one of the best character-driven stories in Batman cinematic history. The art directing and voice performances that include Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy really echo the great work done on the animated series, and it became a comic-accurate Batman movie that should have got a lot of attention originally. It didn't matter though, because this film has since gone on to become a classic, and I think many Bat fans would have this towards the top half of their list. I really enjoyed it, and I particularly love how it took Batman as a character seriously in a more mature animation. At number 8 on my list, I'm placing Tim Burton's original Batman. The importance of this film is known by almost everyone, as it was one of the examples that made Hollywood accept comic books on the big screen, and it was the start of Tim Burton's Gothic vision for the Caped Crusader. Batman 89 remains a perfect example of how to capture the idea and feeling of a character without being 100% comic accurate, with Burton showing his fascination over German expressionism and crafting a Gotham City that is everlasting. While I prefer his approach in Batman Returns, where he had a lot more creative control, there's so much to love about this film, and it started a lot of people's fascination with the character on the big screen. Not to mention Danny Elfman's classic score, Michael Keaton's solid performance as Bruce Wayne and Batman, and Jack Nicholson's classic portrayal of the Clown Prince of Crime. It may not be the absolute best, but it raised an argument for the large-scale appeal of Batman on the big screen, and to this day, it was absolutely correct. Next, I'm putting the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, while the theatrical version of this film was one that I was disappointed with back in 2016, after rewatching the Ultimate Edition multiple times since its Blu-ray and home release, the film has, in my eyes, got consistently better on rewatch, and it highlighted the crucial character development, plot points, and overall structure that was missing in the theatrical. It's not a perfect film, it's not for everyone, and I understand that some may look at Batman killing and feel like it's not a version of this character for them. For me, however, this was all a part of adapting a Batman that had pushed things too far. In this story, everything Batman believed in was challenged, all of his beliefs and hopes were disintegrating after so many years in a bad place. He's at the end of his time, and he's lost the instinct for fighting that he once had. It's a Batman who needs redeeming, and one that has failed. And to me, that was an interesting thing to see play out, and it led to what would eventually become the Snyder Cut of Justice League, where he had his redemption and overall a reconstruction arc. But this film does go into and end with the message of Superman becoming the source of hope that Batman and the world desperately needed. It was different from the traditional universe-building superhero film, and while I didn't like some of those elements on display, there were things like the introduction of Wonder Woman which did play out really well. And overall, its themes and relatability to icons in our own world make it all the more fascinating on rewatch. I know it's going to be controversial and some people really don't like this film, but honestly, I stand by my own opinion on this, and I feel that the film will only get better as time passes. But hey, we've all got different thoughts on it, and I respect those that don't particularly like it too. And at the number 6 position comes Batman Returns. Batman Returns is a fantastic sequel that fully shows us what a Tim Burton Batman film is. It goes bigger than the first and fully dives into his ambition for a deeply strange landscape, but one that still drips in the essence of Gotham and Batman. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Danny DeVito's Penguin are horror characters that work perfectly well alongside Michael Keaton's Dark Knight, showing all the anti-hero that we expect from their characters and making this film an iconic take on the world, one that again proves you don't have to lean into the commercial traits to make a good film about this character. It's grotesque at points, but it brilliantly conveys the kind of Gotham City that Burton always wanted to bring to the big screen. And I love how it stands on its own too, and you don't have to go back and watch his first film. Burton tries to bring his complete sense of Batman to the screen, and he fully achieved that with his second outing, delivering a top-tier film that so happens to be a comic book one. Rounding out the top 5 is the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Now, I know another controversial one that many people will either put towards the top of their list or towards the bottom. But building on what I said about Batman v Superman, this film completely reconstructs Batman as a character and shows that the journey to regain the family he once lost has now been complete. While he's not the main player when it comes to screen time, we know that Ben Affleck's Batman has lost 2 families prior to the events of this film, whether that be his parents or the Bat family that came in between. Now he rediscovers a new one, and it calls for some of the warmest moments with him on screen. While I'm not the biggest fan of adapting the Bat family, Zack Snyder found a way to make the essence of that work well with Batman and eventually the forming of the Justice League. It's an epic film that shows individuals growing into their own, ultimately finding each other and forming the greatest league of superheroes on the planet. And apart from completely eclipsing the theatrical version in 2017, the production on this was quite great too. Although we couldn't see it in IMAX because of it being a director's cut, all the footage is preserved and presented in its original tall aspect ratio, alongside a great supporting soundtrack by Junkie XL, giving me one of my favourite scenes of the year too in the Flash Speed Force scene. Overall though, it was an emotional reconstruction of hope that Snyder's world needed, and watching the Snyder Cut back to back with BVS makes the experience all the better, because you're not left in the dark to wonder why Bruce never gets the redemption of his character. Well, he gets it here, and fully cements his place among the best Batman performers we've seen on screen. At number 4, I'm placing Christopher Nolan's final Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, while I agree that this is perhaps the weakest of the whole trilogy, I have to disagree with a few takes online that this is a bad film. While it is flawed, in my opinion, The Dark Knight Rises is an expressive epic about a Bruce Wayne desperate to be Batman no more, but one who eventually grows into the symbol that he needs to be one last time to save Gotham from the force that has been rising. Bruce is all but at the end of his time as Batman and believes that building himself up physically will help him conquer evil. But what he doesn't recognise is that his spirit has been broken, and this is what needs to be fixed. Once he does, we get probably the most epic scene of a superhero rising from beneath, and it leads to Batman ultimately becoming the hero and symbol that Gotham needs. That lives on and allows others to eventually take up the mantle once he's gone. From Hans Zimmer's emotional yet pounding version of the Dark Knight music, to the stunning cinematography and practical effects, Nolan ended his trilogy with a great film that embodies the everlasting spirit of Batman. He further brought in another classic performance with Tom Hardy's Bane, and overall, he continued what he'd been doing previously, making unique genre films about Batman. Batman Begins was a great origin tale, The Dark Knight was a fantastic neo-noir crime thriller, and The Dark Knight Rises was an emotional war epic for the soul of Gotham. Right from its operatic opening plane scene to its large-scale finale, The Dark Knight Rises still ranks among the best Batman films, even if it's the weakest in the trilogy, and not Nolan's strongest work either. Making the top 3 is the latest film starring the Caped Crusader with Matt Reeves The Batman. Reeves' take on The Dark Knight is a unique and deeply compelling one that fully gets into the psyche of a Year 2 version of this character. It was the perfect blend of the darker and realistic aspects we'd seen in, say, the Dark Knight trilogy, with the more pulpier comic book things from the character's lore. But Reeves manages to maintain the detective noir outlook throughout much of the film, and it's totally absorbing. I've currently watched it 4 times in theatres, and it just gets better on every watch, most notably due to its fantastic performances from that of Robert Pattinson, Paul Dano and Zoë Kravitz. It finds a way to fully connect to the origins of Batman and his morals without even retelling that story, because it's been done so well before, and it really engages in reflecting some of the ugly aspects of the real world. Coupled with an outstanding score by Michael Giacchino and superb cinematography by Greg Fraser, it works as being a perfect Batman film, but also as one within its own genres. While it's currently not number 1 on my list, I will say that over more rewatches in the years to come and the sequels to this first film, that maybe Reeves might make a film that goes to that number 1 spot. And that's just for me personally. But right now, it's still one of my favourite comic book films of all time, and I think other fans are really responding well to it, so that is an achievement in itself when we consider how many great Batman films there have been. This is due to unique filmmakers putting their stamp on the character and its world every time we get a new Batman film, constantly keeping it fresh and introducing new things that we haven't seen before. Reeves has continued that trend and delivers one of the best films on Batman that goes right back to the roots of Detective Comics. Just missing out on the top spot is the first of Christopher Nolan's trilogy in Batman Begins. It's quite easy to take this film for granted all these years later, but like the original X-Men films and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, it had such a profound impact on the superhero movies today. It was the breath of fresh air that not just Batman needed, but also the comic book genre needed, with Nolan's gritty take on the character's origin. For me, it's one of the best comic book origin films of all time, taking things back to their roots, adding in an infuse of Blade Runner to his Gotham, and grounding Batman within it. It was a psychological structured Batman movie that became the blueprint for origin tales in this genre, giving Batman fans what they wanted, but also film fans the full effect too. Christian Bale was fantastic as Batman, but primarily as Bruce Wayne, and Michael Caine gave us an Alfred that we always wanted. The action was large scale, the story was surprisingly moving, and the threat to Gotham by Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul and Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow gave that thrilling weight come the third act. The only thing that probably could have been done better is the editing during the action sequences, which I will say the Batman did better, but the structured story and growth of Bruce into Batman is something that was done so extraordinarily well that other directors failed to reach. And the sequels did improve on this editing, making the trilogy only grow and feel improved from a technical standpoint. But the technicality was still very strong in this film, including production elements like the score and sweeping cinematography that propelled Nolan's film to the top of the superhero genre. And at number 1 is The Dark Knight. It is my second favourite film of all time, and it remains one of the biggest achievements in both superhero movies and blockbuster cinema in general. A blockbuster that was equally as entertaining as it was stylised, and expertly paced as a crime thriller that conveyed that of Michael Mann's Heat. But while influenced, it raised the bar for this type of filmmaking in its own way, giving us jaw-dropping action set pieces using practical effects, shifts in tone that work masterfully, and a realistic urban aesthetic that, once threatened, conveys the fear that Americans were going through post 9/11. But of course, I cannot mention that without talking about the world-class performances, particularly in that of Heath Ledger's Oscar-winning portrayal of the Joker, Aaron Eckhart's great turn from the White Knight of Harvey Dent into Two-Face, and Christian Bale's Batman, who struggles to catch up to the actions of the antagonist. Many blockbuster films and franchises have tried to replicate the things done here, and the film to this day remains one of the greatest we've ever seen, mainly because Nolan knows how to ingeniously balance the popcorn thrills with character-driven storytelling. It's astonishing what they pulled off, and while I believe it's not impossible to make a better film, it's definitely a tall order. And in my opinion, while The Batman is for me the best Batman film ever made, right now, The Dark Knight is the best film that so happens to have Batman and his world in a motion picture. Maybe Matt Reeves can top this with one of the future entries in his trilogy, but what he has done with the Batman is of course brilliant. And honestly, I just respect Nolan, Reeves and all the other filmmakers for bringing unique takes on this character that I personally love. But yes, The Dark Knight is still my number 1, and for me personally, it's one of the greatest films of all time. But that was my video ranking all 13 theatrical Batman movies, including Matt Reeves' The Batman. Like I said, this is just my personal opinion towards how I would place all the films, and this may change as the years go on. Matt Reeves has only made one Batman film, and I already consider it a top 3 entry and a masterpiece of a comic book movie. So imagine if the sequels are even better and this first movie continues to be as strong on rewatch. I think it's looking bright for this new trilogy, and honestly, I can't wait to see what's in store with more films. But I am very interested to see how you guys would rank them now that The Batman is finally out, so let me know your list down below in the comment section, alongside your thoughts on the ranking I have shared in this video. For more breakdowns and topical videos on The Batman, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.